guys, let's go live. Let's go live. Someone was saying in the chat, oh, look, it's the Basilisk Mark 7. I think that's a great in-joke. Ben here from Second Dynasty. We make 3D printable spaceships, and we like to do an update every week of what we've been up to. I've actually been up to a whole heap. On Monday we launched the Frontier, so the actual downloadable files for our 28mm scale 3D printable free trader Beowulf from the Traveller universe, released on Monday. Mostly a soft release in a sense. This time I was responsible for some of the fudge ups. Namely, my Excel skills might have been a bit rusty, and I managed to sort things out of order. So we had everything up and running again by Tuesday. So if you did back, you should check your My Mini Factory account. And if you don't have one, you should check your junk email folder if you haven't seen it in your regular email folder to be able to redeem your files there. Just a quick off-the-top show thing to mention that, again, we've tried to make it as obvious as we can, but the deck plans are not released yet. We are tentatively saying January, but that is mostly just so that we don't have to hold to anything. Albin, who you might hear chuckling in the background, he's happy. He just got his coffee and a little bit of chocolate, so yeah. He has been away with a bit of illness, but is back and has been tackling the gig deck plan. We've made a few modifications to that. That's sort of something to consider for the future, of maybe even looking at like doing some additional modifications to the base files, where we might be able to put one of our Traveller style engines in the back of it or something like that. But right now, I guess you can see the page here. It's been a quiet launch, which is not so surprising when we've had such a successful Kickstarter. But I did put up in the milestones that last stretch goal we hadn't hit yet, the mezzanine, and you can see we've got about $800 left. We're open for another just under 2 weeks. Want to make sure that the next US payday is actually during the release. So there are a few things to talk about. We're going to work on the I was going to call it the Basilisk, but this is the Firefly. This is the Firefly, not a Viper. The Basilisk is where did it go? This is the Basilisk. So yeah, you can kind of see that also has some specific DNA. So we've got this to the point where I'm getting ready to release it. It's been test printed, not fully, but I have it. It does exist. I needed to make a few refinements to the wings, and obviously the launch has been keeping me busy. But I promised it will be out on Monday, so it will be out on Monday. And we will even do a nice little article to sort of update about it as well. So nice to see some familiar names in the chat. Greetings, Savants. I think that is a great one that covers basically anyone possible, right? It could even cover some people we don't know are watching, since it covers all intelligent species. That could disqualify me, but
Don't say that.
I was just fishing for a compliment. All right, yeah, so we're going to talk about the Firefly and the process to get these files out and ready for print. We're going to talk about 3DO and the instructions for the Beowulf. I should probably...
It almost sounds like a Harry Potter book or something.
The Free Trader Beowulf and the instructions of Beowulf. I don't know.
Oh, it's a bit long though, right?
I mean, that's...
And it has nothing to do with magicians or anything like that either. That's a flaw.
No. No, it really doesn't, Albin, have anything to do with magicians. But thank you for contributing. And we're also going to talk about the huge, big, little incentive. The huge, big, little incentive I've tried to give you guys in the turrets. department. So let's talk about that first, because we do. I hope the update came. If I refresh this, is there an update now? There's. Oh wait, I didn't do an update on this campaign. I did it on the Free Trader Beowulf campaign. So if I go into updates here, you can see more turrets, more freebies there, and we'll get into the details here. But basically, the gist of it was, when we're in the Free Trader, and you can see the scene, it's sort of like, I don't have all the parts in at the moment, but you can see there's a sea of turret variants here all of a sudden. What's all that about?
Oh, so, did you like a maritime joke? Sea of No, oh damn, my English suck. I thought you said turrets, not turrets.
Oh, Albin, you are the reason we're losing concurrent viewers. Hopefully you guys can actually hear him in the background. But yes, the we, of course, if I actually make this a little bit more visible, let's see, I want to turn on the top hull. I want to turn on the deck B sides. We don't need to have everything in for the Beowulf, but of course, we want to look at our standard turret, right? So the turret we made for the Beowulf is based on the sort of like Rob Caswell style. There are a couple of other artists in there too, I think from about the Mega Traveler period, I'm not sure, but 80s black and white ink art. I love that style. I think the ships themselves really fit in with our aesthetic, which is, you know, this nostalgic sort of like old school 70s, 80s, 90s designs. So for me, that was a natural go-to if you're going to choose anything to be inspired by the Traveler universe. And obviously, the Beowulf itself, a lot of the lines in the ship, we've also taken inspiration from that art, although obviously the layout and planning of the ship is more based on the Traveler 5 version, insofar as it exists, because whilst the Traveler 5 version has deck plans, the actual art for it is based on Ian Stead's work, and it is a slightly different design than what fits on the interior. There's no rights or wrongs when it comes to the Beowulf because there are so many different versions, and that's basically what Mr. Mark Miller himself said. So we have had a little bit of creative freedom on this one, more so than the Scout. But yes, it took a long time to implement, but initially we only had the single, or rather double turret, double laser beam turret, that the Beowulf default version was sort of shown with. So we've got a top, dorsal turret and a ventral turret. And then, of course, in our social stretch goals, we released the quad turret, which left me thinking, won't people want even more turrets? Now, we have had the T5 turret pack. I don't know if we've got that easily available here somewhere. Let's see if we go to add-ons here, we should be able to scroll down and see something here. Wonder why that's all out of order. Do we have the T5 turret pack here somewhere? Oh, well, there might be an item or two missing or something, or maybe I just need to refresh the page again. Who knows on my mini factory. Okay, well that's something I need to look into after the stream. But yeah, the T5 packs, we can see them on the original Kickstarter page. If we scroll down to the add-ons, there we go. So these ones Albin did a while back based on the T5 art. I would say, to be fair to the Traveler 5 art, that it's more representative than functional. So none of the barrels on this sort of work. The Type S had a different style, but you know, the actual barrels weren't too articulated. Let me just quickly fix the Dropbox so it's not gonna keep messaging and interfering. So you can kind of see, you know, these designs, I think some of them look cool and interesting, but the fact that the barrels don't really move, you know, you can question how these turrets would actually work. I mean, rotating a barrel's fine, but what about launching missiles? are the missiles even really representative of what they should be? So I went back to that same Rob Caswell art that was in the Starship User's Manual or something like that it's called. And basically it only had side art, and from that I've just gone and designed a bunch of different variants. So we have some pulse lasers, that's a single pulse laser. I assume this is like a targeting lens that's been illustrated. Double, triple, quadruple, because apparently that's possible in some versions of Traveller. We've got some combinations here. This is a missile launcher and pulse. Missile launcher, Sandcaster and pulse. Twin pulse and a Sandcaster. That's a triple beam laser and single beam laser. Then we get into our Sandcasters, quad, triple, double, and single. And then we have our missile launchers, which is sort of like, I imagine that they load like so, that the barrels sort of tilt up. I don't know if it's going to be a perfect fit. I can't guarantee a full 90 degrees. We get close to it. So it gets something like this, and then it would be bottom loaded from the ship and then move back into position, right? Is the idea. So we have up to quad on that as well.
So sorry, you just got the comments saying that they look really good, and I have to agree. I really enjoy how these turrets and their armaments came out.
Yeah, they look kind of retro and cool at the same time.
Yeah. We also got a comment here that it's the book you were referring to earlier was called Starship Operator Manual.
Was that Dalton by any chance?
It might have been 5 Phoenix, actually.
Oh, okay, nice. Starship Operator Manual. There you go. I have heard a little birdie saying that there could be a new T5 edition of that, but I don't know the details. In any case, I love how these came out, and we kind of were trying to brainstorm, okay, what can we do to maybe convince a few of the people that backed on the campaign at the $75 pledge level that, you know what, it's really kind of worth bumping up your pledge to the next level and getting the all-in, because you get $59 worth of stuff for an additional 25. And so the turrets pack is what was born. And this has 2 different turret styles, and I'll explain that in a second. A total of 19 barrel variants, and I'm sure there's other combinations you guys will probably want. So we might be able to do 1 or 2 of those now if you wanted to. It is fairly simple now that they've all been built out quite modular. They're available now and already released to people that have the all-in or above pledge level on the Kickstarter onto My Mini Factory Frontiers. So you can download and print these. And then we have my Type S version. Now the thing is, this is not the turret from the Type S. What this is the barrels from the Type S with a converted Beowulf turret. So unlike the Type S, which it has some kind of like method for being able to move the barrel up and down a little bit, it's not very practical or functional. But now we have a Beowulf version, and you can see you can get the full sort of range out of it. This will be slightly looser in the final version, so I think it will probably be possible to have that gun going vertical. And since this is just, reusing, the turret base too is more like the style of the, you can see here that the Beowulf style has this sort of like tiled look on the side, whereas the Type S, it's easier to see from above, has these sort of like notches in it and side pieces here. So we've added that as a second variant. And yeah, great question, Dalton. All of our ships that have turret ports can fit these. That includes the old Type S, the old Type J, anything from like a Shuttle Alpha variant with a turret port to a basically a Chimera with turret ports, a Cerberus, you name it. The turret port has been standardized since Starship 3. We haven't changed the actual mechanism of connecting things, and that just means that, yeah, it can fit onto anything. So, free fire Beowulf. Technically, you can even mount the other turret variant that we've got. Yeah, we shall not talk about he who shall not be named. In any case, I'm wondering what you guys think of this. Does it seem reasonable to add it to free to all the all-in? I mean, it's a done deal now, but hopefully that will interest some of the 82, I think, people that only backed at the free trader Beowulf stuff. Then on the other side of things, I don't expect much movement either, because I do realize it's very close to Christmas. People are feeling the pain, and on top of everything else, inflation is killing us all. But we're surviving thanks to you guys. So yeah, that was not all of that much work either. I mean, the thing is, I did a ton of work obviously beforehand, so making all these variants did go a little bit quicker than the first time you built a turret. So this. You can see that the other barrels that we designed for the Type S I kind of had in the scene as well. Although, to be perfectly honest, unless there's like a demand for this, I think we'll just leave it with the single version here. The single version, however, we have made available for free for anyone. And that was our excuse to sort of mail out to people to say, hey, upgrade your pledge, but if you don't want that or these turrets, you can have this one for free. So... enjoy.
There was, I heard some whispers in the grapevine, perhaps, or something, or another, about barbettes. I'm thinking, aren't they very large compared to ordinary turrets?
I'm not going to be doing barbettes.
Mm.
We have some barbettes that we did, like our turrets pack 4, I think. For the Chimera, it's basically double the size of a standard turret port. The thing is, it looks silly on a Beowulf. Now, mind you, we could probably easily do, put a barbette there instead of a single turret without too much modification. I mean, it would still be a pain in the butt. The thing is, we don't really have the room underneath to do what you would expect a barbette to be. I don't know what the barbette's meant to look like either. Usually, most of the ships illustrate.
Aren't they quite boxy?
Not necessarily. A barbette is like technically what we're calling turrets are more like the turrets on a bomber. So it's more like a manned single gun sort of thing. A barbette is what you would find on a battleship.
Yeah.
So those cannons that are enclosed, that I might also call turrets, are barbettes technically.
I'm thinking more like, when I try to remember what we worked with, I think it was one of the 270 models that had the barbettes, and they were modeled like, imagine a tank top, not the, what do you call it, the turret of the tank. But larger. And,
yeah. You mean the turret of the tank?
Yes. But they were like, it almost looks like a pillbox or something strapped onto the ship. And I mean, that wouldn't really fit on the Beowulf, would it? It would be kind of weird to design it.
We could make it fit. Yeah. We can do anything because we are the masters of 3D. I didn't know that's how he was gonna act, guys. But yeah, it is what it is. Think of a 5D ton turret. That's quite large. That's 10 squares worth, right? So yeah, no. Although technically, I guess that includes the internal stuff. They're like, get Albin a microphone. The thing is, when we give Albin a microphone, then you hear my microphone at the same time. We're not a sophisticated operation, guys. We're not. Why have I don't have music on either. Why am I shouting? And I have. Well, I mean, I'm shouting so you can hear me. But why do I have headphones on? I don't know. It's like the last stream where I was like, "Oh, I'm by myself. I'm gonna play some music," and then like 10 minutes before the end, I realized I got my headphones on, and there's still no music. Or maybe there was music. All right, sorry guys, I'm being silly now. It is a Friday, which is something I'm sure you guys will forgive if we're a little bit all over the place. Let's see. So that was the main thing with the Beowulf with the freebies. Today I have exported version 1.02 with the fix I feel. Whoops, sorry. Not meant to click on that one. I was meant to click on 3DO. Didn't mean to get my Discord up. But Tamsin pointed out a file that was incorrect. So I just gone back and changed that as well. So you can see here, Beowulf instruction 0.3 in I was going to call it Deck Designer again, but it is 3DO. So John has done a very thorough job, along with Custom Blink, of importing the objects and sort of getting them in. I don't know what's going on with this turret. That looks off. Is it just a bit low? Yeah, it's just a bit low. It's meant to be a bit further. Something like this. Almost looks like it's at the wrong scale. But, oh, so the instructions are quite extensive. I gave John about 2 different pages of notes. So these are a lot more thorough and better than our original first pass. But there's enough changes in my notes that I didn't want to make a Mark II version of the instructions as of yet. Just because it makes more sense to wait until the mechanics side of things makes the most sense, because there are a few parts that are a bit finicky. This has some of those changes in here, as you can see now that the sort of like deck C and B parts of the hull with the fuel tanks are supposed to, basically the whole back of the ship, you don't take off deck B, you lift out the floor. Let me just get this finished. I'm amazed how responsive 3DO can be sometimes, or all the time rather. So as you can see here, the hull of deck B and deck C is all sort of combined here. So you're only going to be lifting out the floor of B deck here to get from the top drive compartment level to the bottom one with the power plant. Also, John, and I assume maybe Custom Blink as well, thought that we had 2 power plants in the original version, which is not the case. So if I fast forward a hell of a lot here, you can see how many steps there are. Multiple steps per step as well, with animations. So here he's put in 2 power plants, but actually we need to delete that side, because the only reason you have 2 power plants is if you've upgraded them. So that part is incorrect, and the Power 2 version is squared off as well, so it can take a slightly larger maneuver drive. But you can see it's quite intensive work here that John has done. He was crook last week, and he sort of worked overtime to get this to the state it's in. He's going to hate me when he wakes up to my huge big list of changes. But he is a forgiving man, so I'm sure he will, be nice about it. But in any case, this means that we can't get started on the instructions until those changes get made. And I think probably like Monday or Tuesday. So hopefully next Friday we have full instructions. So what are you guys meant to do between now and then if you don't have 3DO and can't look at this slightly improved version? Well, I mean, technically you could watch this stream and just like pause when I do every step, but I don't really want to torture you in that way. So the main thing with the instructions, right, is you want to figure out which part of the ship you're going to be printing first, and then how to assemble them. In fact, the printing part, some people might logically assume that should come before you actually get to the instruction part, because you don't need to assemble it until you actually have parts to assemble, right? Or at least that's how I think some people might think. So basically we're reaching the end of the instructions now, and all the special clips are being shown for the most part. Okay, now that's sitting where it's supposed to be, so I don't know what's going on with that. In any case, let's turn off these instructions and just frame the ship so it looks decent enough, and I can continue blabbering on. So what is my solution? Well, what is better than instructions in a video form when really what you want to do is get started printing? Well, we have our Prusa slicer, and this is one of the pieces I replaced. There are a couple of other ones in there, so if you do download 1.0.2, I would recommend you sort of delete the Beowulf folder and extract it into a fresh folder, just to make sure there's nothing that's, straggling that will get you confused. But what if you did not even have to do this at all? What if you could actually just import pre-prepared print beds of stuff?
I thought you were going to say use your imagination.
Well, I mean, that's what people have been doing for the last 40 odd years in Traveller, 45 years actually. No, what we are going to do, and I'm going to walk you guys through this, but as a part of that 1.0.2, which went here somewhere, let's see, am I in the right folders? Yes, there's a new folder called Build Plates, and in there I have made a bunch of 3MFs. So 3MFs, it's a more advanced format for 3D printing. It contains a whole heap more information. If you happen to use Prusa Slicer, you can make the best use of it, although it still works perfectly fine importing it into Cura or whatnot. If you're using Prusa Slicer, if you have a... Let me just open one of these and show you what happens. So I'm going to open this one, Build Plate 1, Bow, and I have 14 of them that I did this morning. And that's just Deck C. So that gives you a sense of the size, right? So I'm opening this in Prusa Slicer, and what you might notice is it has changed my build plate from the Prusa Mark III to the Prusa Mini. That being because I wanted to build the Beowulf so it would fit on a Mini, right? So this works to open in Prusa Slicer. However, if you don't have, if you have a Prusa Mini, that's fine, you can open it, and I think you'll be able to just click Slice Now, which I'm letting it calculate. My graphics card sounds like a jet engine right now. And you can see that when I imported this, it also kept the support material. There are actually very, very few pieces that require supports. I would say of the 250 pieces, maybe 10, maximum 15 of them would require any form of supports, and they're usually limited. So by using these build plates, not only do you get my printer settings for how I print with 8% infill and whatnot, you get some customizations here. Like, for example, I have set up on this object to have adaptive layer heights. So you can see that they're quite a lot finer detail here just on the nose. So that is carried over. You can see with the print information that it's set up that you can see all of these, let's see, the semiotics. You can see they're printing with all the details in them. So these are set up so that you can just fire and forget. So if you do have a Prusa Mini, you can literally open these, click the preview, and then click export G-code, and directly you can just have it on your printer in less than a minute. However, let's close this off, discard. So if you do have a different model, so you have, like me, some Prusa i3 Mark III printers, you don't want this to switch to a Mini because I don't have a Mini. So what I want to do is, instead of opening it, I want to go to import stl/3mf/ blah blah blah, and here we select the let's see, I need to navigate to the correct folder, so I want to go to my catalog, and Beowulf and Beowulf and Beowulf and build plates. So I go to the bow there, and then when I import it, I get this question, multi-part object detected. Just click no, and there we have it on the build plate there. So I could either slice this now as it is, and it will print as well in just about as quick a time as it would if you had a Prusa Mini. Or, since I have a larger build plate, I could choose to file, import, choose the next one, and get all these parts in, and then sort of like rearrange this to have additional parts, right? So I think, honestly, unless you have like a Prusa Max or whatever it's called, Prusa Plus, can't remember, the big one, this probably isn't going to be the most effective method. But, you know, even if you just put this up, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the print time is going to be quite excessive anyway. So you might not want to have more than this. So for example, this this would take 1 day and 11 hours, 59 minutes. So basically a day and a half for this piece. So maybe you don't want to fill that plate up completely anyway. These are still quite reasonable chunky prints. But yeah, so you could have, basically there's 14 different plates here just for C-Deck. So there is, unless you've got a printer farm, there is absolutely no one that should be able to get through all of this. Challenge accepted, I hear. That should be able to get through to all of this by the time we can get out, you know, the PDF instructions to assemble it all. So this should keep people going until such times as we have more information. I would be highly impressed if anyone was capable of printing a Beowulf before Christmas.
How bad is this bamboo?
Yeah, the bamboo could probably do it. I forgot about that. Let's see, that's about 5 times faster. So instead of a day and a half, what would that be? Like 6 hours? No, 8 hours maybe. That's incredibly fast.
It's cray.
It's cray. Obviously, these are not all going to be the same speed. They don't require the same thing. But it has my print settings built in. It has Arachne, which preserves the... You've gone into 40k again. But yeah, it preserves the semiotics. So it's a more... I don't want to say foolproof, but like if you are a little bit more of a beginner... and don't really know what settings you should have, this is a good way of doing it. If you do have Cura and import this, I believe it will still open, but these print settings will not follow. So this is a good argument for using Prusa Slicer. There I go, pimping it again. All right, do we have any more questions or comments I should know about?
Well, earlier I think someone asked about the jump drive. You might have shown it already though.
The jump drive?
How it looks.
Oh, okay, I can show you how the jump drives look. Let me just turn on the deck P into...
Foolproof challenge accepted.
Oh dear. Well, I mean, I walked into that one, didn't I? Let's see, so I want to turn off the deck A interior, I want to turn off the whole top and deck A sides. So we can look into the drive compartments, and I also want to turn off the social goals So
People were also very excited, it seemed. They also commented about there being build plates.
well, yay for build plates. Maybe if someone has those conveyor belt ender machines, they can manage to print one before Christmas. Those conveyor belt printer machines aren't really suitable for this kind of printing, to be honest. Sadly, but a nice thought. But yeah, here are the jump drives, the standard versions, the beefier kind I could show off as well. So the jump 2 class, these are jump 1s. So it's sort of like 10 tons or something like that divided up into 2 sections. Let's see, so if we turn off this and turn on this, some people might have noticed that the jump 2 drives don't quite fit on the original flooring, and the same with the maneuver drives. So we actually do have this all ready to go. I just need to export it so it has the right names. So there will be an update to the flooring in the drive compartment to fit all the power to jump to sort of stretch goals that we unlocked during the Kickstarter. And then, of course, if I go back to jump 2 there, we get the actual drives themselves. So you can see much beefier jump drives for the jump 2. They take up a lot more room, and if we had not switched out that floor, I can show the old floor as well. Let's put the old drive compartment on and turn off this one. You can kind of see all the pipes and stuff go over the edges. Not really suitable. Also in the final version, I'm going to move the control panels here to the corners because they, will be blocking access to some of that machinery, especially now that we don't have access through walkways because this is all sort of cordoned off. So you can see the new position. I do need to finish working on those floor panels, which is why I have not released these so far. It's only a couple of hours of work at max, probably not even that. A lot of the work is sort of like tidying things up, testing to make sure that they look like they're going to print. Was Dalton asking about Jump 2? So the power plant is on deck C. Let's turn off the deck B altogether, and the jump drives stretch and maneuver drive stretch. You can see that the power plant 2 version is in here. It doesn't have its own layer. You can see the main difference, aside from it being red, because it goes faster, is instead of the sort of like curved supports on the top that we have with the Jump 1 version, the Class A, I guess. This would be the Class B, I guess. Technically, it would be 2 of these on each side. There's also, not shown here, I think I need to open the social stretch goals here, an alternative version on the other side where it has the piping that the original version has. Sorry about all the mess here, like Captain Solo. So yeah, this is designed to have a flatter top, and the reason for that is you can see right here the we don't want this to intersect with the maneuver drives. And if I turn on the jump 3, you can see that maneuver 3, it pops out a little bit further. And we can see the problem here on the opposite drive that it actually intersects with it. So that's why we've done that rework. The square top was actually more like what the Traveller 5 art looked like anyway. So choose your poison. Yeah, there is random caution tape floating on the floor. That's not supposed to be there anymore. So yeah, well spotted. So this scene obviously is a bit of a mess. Obviously it has the mezzanine that we're working towards, and a couple of other features. I think honestly, over 2 weeks, if we look at the about campaign and milestones there, I think we can probably do the $831 that is left I don't think we'll be making thousands upon thousands of dollars in the aftermarket just because of the time of year that it is. It's already quite an expensive ship too, so I'm happy with how it's gone. Even though I think we can definitively say at the moment that as much as I love the huge ships, 8 months of development time is not something we can do at the moment because we just don't have enough of a market for such ships. So awesome that the 642 people that have bought in on this. Maybe those that bought the Beowulf, we can drop off another 100, so 550-ish, maybe a little less. Not enough to justify 8 months of work on a ship at the moment. I'm sorry. Well, we could do that, but then we would have to increase the price by, 25-30%. And I think it's already a bit much to ask for what it is. So until, maybe there's lots of aftermarket sales. I don't know. See, if we had 2,000 people buying the ship, I could have sold it at, $50 instead of 75 or even less. But we're in a niche market and the pricing is basically dictated by that. I hope that's clear to people. It's not because I don't love building those kinds of ships. The other thing too is the traveler ships take a lot longer than an original design that I can build in a much shorter period of time. So let's move away from the Beowulf and move back towards our starfighters. And all of these starfighters have previously been released, and we're doing a thing now with our tribes. It's basically Patreon, where you put in $5 or $10 a month, get a new starfighter or some other goodies as well. Or if you're on the $10 version, a couple of items from our back catalog to slowly collect our ships and whatnot if you don't want to pay a whole heap up front, even though there are a ton of people that have done that. And the latest version, we had a poll in November over which design I would go with. We had two, the Firefly and the Beowulf or something like that, I think it's called. This one, it's a design I made originally in 2006, but it was a lot simpler back when I was watching Battlestar. So hence the basilisk jokes at the top of the screen, because our Viper knockoff, all of these starfighters are modular, so they're designed so you can swap out the wings and sort of, here we have a bunch of different components and things, right, from our starfighter packs. But this, for example, aircraft was a Tribes exclusive. That got us a brand new cockpit design, which you can see here. I further refined it in the Firefly here. And the last changes I've made were actually just before the show, thinking about the missile loadout. I'm not going to actually have any missiles or weapons on it at the time we release. What I'm going to do is instead I have this port that I've installed, and it's just the same size as these landing gear, only what we're going to do is to take the base of this, and instead of having a landing gear on it, we're going to put some mounting points. So that would be the solution, and we have a flat version already, so if you don't want to have armaments on the wings, that's what you can do. Maybe we can even do a variant which just has a mount, so you could put, a second set of guns or something on it. And then the other issue with printing was that we can see here, or rather, let me switch to the close-up. I don't know how well you guys can see because I don't actually, it's actually fairly dark in here, but I can see on stream I look a lot brighter. But we have the prototype. The printer ran out of filament just before the end, and I couldn't recover the print, as you can kind of see here on the tip of this wing. I'm not entirely happy with how this connects. It's sort of like a Lego Man connection. It does work, but it's a bit tough, as I'm sort of demonstrating. I think I was putting it on the wrong angle there. So it does hang on. I can't see in the dark. So I think one of the issues, there you go, it's on now. It wasn't as free flowing as I hoped. And you're lighting me, thank you. I really needed to be lit. You know, I do have a light here if I needed it. So I'm good. I'd like to sit in the dark like an ex-hobbit.
Or a 3D modeler.
Yeah, sure. I guess that's accurate. So one of the issues with these wings, if we look at it, is it has this. Well, this is the original version. It has this slightly flat bottom, which is what we print it from. And then, because the angle that it prints from is like 90 degrees up. But this cylinder is a little bit too rough with this chamfering. So the new version has a lot more geometry in it. Not heaps and heaps, but enough to the point where I feel like it'll be a smoother transition. And then I didn't feel like the claws themselves held on very well. So if we look at the original version of the wing claws, you can see they're very rough once again. And they're really just this fork. And that might work very well if you have like a Lego man gripping a tool because of the type of plastic that's used. But here I've just added these tiny little hooks, and you can see that the geometry's also been increased in fidelity a little bit. So I still need to test print this. It's still going to be strong because of the orientation that we've printed it in. It prints flat like this. And that's what lets us have, you know, the landing gear slot there and this weapon slot here. And yeah, so that needs a test printing, but we're at the point where we can actually start exporting these things. So let's start doing that and show you what that process is like. So I'm in my Starship 5 directory. This is where my Starfighters project is. So I go into export, STL, and I believe I have a folder here, Starfighter Firefly here. So I have a number of files here that I've just named them test because I wasn't really ready for the final version. So I believe we want to go to the wing and a test. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to rename this to wing aft and take off the test. This piece I think should be the same. This one, I'm just going to rotate it back to its natural place because it's going to make it easier to, because these are, you know, they do fold. That part is functional. Oh, okay, Dalton, I was hoping we could talk later, but sure. Have a good one. So I'm going to export this. And we'll go just wing fin. Export selection. The front of the wing, I don't think it needs changing, but I'm just going to export and save it over the top anyway, so that we've got the same naming convention. So wing 4. And then we go into our Prusa slicer, and we can get rid of this Beowulf print for the time being, and we're going to start importing stuff. We're completely in the wrong folders though, so I'm going to see if I got one in the right structure. No, so I'm going to use some shortcuts, go into Starship 5, export STL, and then Starfighter here. And we're going for the date modified so we can see those 3 newest files. And we will import them. And I am completely shocked that all 3 items seem to be printable as they are. I don't need to run anything through NetFab. Nice. But we do have issues with orientation. So we're going to rotate this one 90 degrees.
Dangerous phrase nowadays.
I don't...
I have problems with orientations.
I think you're reading too far into it. It's all of this woke stuff's gone too far if I can't say orientations of an object.
Oh, yeah.
In any case, let's
Call me
see.
an object?
I'm objectifying album.
Ah!
I'm just going to export these again. You want to select a single object, right click to export, because if you export from Process Slicer itself here, export, you're actually getting the whole plate, not the actual piece that you want. So I think this was the one I was doing. Now I've forgotten which ones I have exported, so I'm just going to do this again. There we go. I guess that's the benefit of the headphones. We don't hear the bloom, bloom, bloom. Next step, slice now. So we can check and see how it's going to slice. And we have a couple of small issues here. There's a little hole there in the clip. I don't think that's going to affect anything mechanically. It didn't in the previous print, and we haven't changed anything there. I like that these little ribs here are coming out quite nicely. If we look at our claws, you can see that there's just a tiny little tip here on the end, which I'm hoping is just going to help grab on a little bit. We don't want it curved too much, because then we might have problems actually getting the fin through. And you can see I've deliberately angled all of these. I believe I'm getting some deja vu, so I must have shown this off last time. And again, the wing here sits flat, looking good. I think that should print without any supports, all of them. And you can see it will take 1 hour and 38 minutes. Now that's past when I'll be heading home for the day anyway. We might put it on the printer to run over the weekend, because we're releasing this on Monday. We didn't say when on Monday, so I can buy myself a little bit more time. But I would say that we have successfully prototyped the wing, and we'll make sure that, we might further refine it. I don't think we need the weapon hooks just yet, but we also need, let's see, the front landing gear was slightly different than the regular kind. You can see that whilst it has the same sort of shape as the back one, that this foot faces the opposite direction. So we're going to export that and call it Firefly forward, landing gear forward, I think. Trying to make all of these files a little bit more legible for the future. What?
We got a comment on how to more easily clip the wings together. Slightly toast the wing holding clips and use the thermoplasticity to jangle the wing into place. Put the fire in Firefly.
Well, I mean, it just might be a bit more fixed than variable winged, right?
We did get a question, I think it was from Boston and Flange probably. Does this mean we can use... how did it write actually? Let's see. Does that mean you can replace the landing gear with more missiles?
Yes.
Yes.
But they would be facing the opposite direction.
So no one is going to be able to follow you without being...
Well, either that or you fire them and then they go directly upwards and destroy your engines. I don't know. I assume not, but there must be a reason why they don't mount missiles backwards on fighter craft. I assume it's to avoid damaging the plane or something. Actually, it's probably to do with the fact that the missiles would slow down if they're traveling in the opposite direction. So I don't think Shadow Lager has kit bashed a fighter yet. Challenge! You have been challenged, sir. That's the other thing that Shadow Lager has unfortunately gone and already made what I was planning for the next stretch goal. So I don't know if I can make it too much better. It would be of a similar vein. He has also offered us to just use those files as the stretch goal. I think we're getting to a good point. Just between you guys and me, where you know you'll get everything that we've modeled. So that on deck, let's see, I need to kill the deck B sides, kill deck B interior. So you can see here the extra pieces we made with the ventilation system, with the what are we calling it? The I can't remember. Brain not working. It is Friday. The life support control. That's the one. So there was one social goal we didn't hit. You guys can have it, okay? I'm not gonna be a douchebag and get even more money for it. I mean, I already did that shenanigan with the turrets, right? So, no, I'm happy with where things are. I'm very happy with the way that the Firefly is looking. I think it's got some really cool lines. Like if you look at it front on, it's kind of like got this interesting nose shape. It was just so much more interesting to design it the second time around. It's its own distinctive thing. I get why people have been joking about it being the Basilisk Mark 7, because the Mark 7 Viper is a little bit more organic and futury. We've got in our variable wings, we've got in our variable tail fin. That slots down.
There was a question earlier, actually, speaking about if it's possible to make a second cockpit to one of these fighters later on.
We technically it's possible. The heavy fighter that we did has a second cockpit, so you could attach this cockpit instead to say the Basilisk, or there's 3 different fighters here: the Lancer, the Basilisk, and the Star Fury. I want to say, all could have that twin cockpit instead. I mean, it's we can do things better than what we have done as well in the future. But my plans, which if you haven't seen the YouTube video, it is on the channel. I know it's for the tribes. I know it's about 14 minutes or so, but I do talk about our future plans, because right now I am traveled out, you might say. We did, by the way, release a couple of the Traveler miniatures from the Type S campaign. So we have some Aslan Travelers, we have a new Engineer. Those can now be bought as singles or collection packs for the posers for the Engineer. I think his name's Calvin or something like that. Which was actually one of our backers from that campaign that went for the highest pledge level, where there were limited positions, but it allowed you to sculpt a character.
Nice.
So if there is the other person that did get back to me like twice and then stopped answering my questions, and you want your miniature done, please do get in touch, because we're getting to the point where it's getting expensive to do those commissions, and it's going to cost more than what the pledge was very soon. So yeah, Calvin. There you go. So they're up. I'm planning to get that Blasted Samouflange's hivers up individually as well. The thing that is the bottleneck is we need good renders for those. I've created a Maya scene now where I have been rendering those in the sort of same style as Traveler 2. So it's got this sort of like the Outrun retro wavy type rendering environment. But you kind of, it's really important to light models well when you have them a single color, right? Yeah. So I'm kind of hoping that AI is going to pick up in the next year or two, and we'll be able to start painting miniatures like a professional painter. That would be nice. And I'm guessing that it would be able to do it without... Wait, when are we going to get a Veritech, at least a transformable fighter? The fighter's a smaller scale than a Valkyrie, but still could be done Alpha or Cyclone sized. Ugh.
I got a crazy idea about the thing you just said before the comment.
Oh, is that so crazy that you felt like interrupting me halfway through?
Couldn't we just, because you can input base images into AI and then do passes on them basically.
Yeah, but we're talking about a 2D versus a 3D image, right?
I mean, if you want like a ordinary render, you could just take a basic render, I guess, and run it through AI.
Oh, once we make the render.
Yeah, if we don't want to.
That's interesting, Albin. We should talk about that more off stream.
Yeah.
Because we are going to wrap things up, and I just want to answer that Blasted Camouflage's question before we do finish things. That is an interesting idea that we render out the image and then throw it through an AI filter. Maybe that will work. I don't know. We will have to see. But let's see. An answer to your question about Veritex. Well, I was going to do it, but you used the incorrect title. It should be Variable Fighter. The Valkyrie is just the first in a series of variable fighters from the Macross universe. No, I'm sorry. This is like edition wars in a way, isn't it? Robotech is a horrible thing that they did to the creators of those series. American corporations at their worst. Even though there's a small part of me that still, in some ways prefers the music from Robotech. Maybe not the songs, but the actual music. Variable fighters, I have designed them in my sketchbooks. They are a little bit more complicated to implement. I have designed variable fighters before because my very first 3D work was on the 1997 Homeworld Macross mod, which I started. And I think we eventually did some variable fighters that actually transformed in a limited fashion. But, you do have to consider how all of the objects look. It is a little bit more complicated and time consuming. I would say possibly in the future. And we will leave it at that. And thank you guys for joining us again this week. Nice to see the regulars and a couple of new people as well joining us. We'll be back next Friday, I'm sure. We're getting close to Chrissy time, so scheduling could change slightly. I have a sneaking suspicion that one of these Fridays we're going to have an after-work Christmas party or something like that. But I don't think it'll interfere with any streams, so we'll be back next week with even more releases. There are a couple more releases going up today for the Beowulf stretch goals. So basically everything that's a 3D object of the stretch goals should be released by the end of today. Fingers crossed. Anyway, thank you for joining us again. I got to find the right window here. Speaking of Macross/Robotech, is there any chance of seeing a Zentradi-style fighters or starships? More organic look is kind of cool, especially if you do interiors. I would like to do that kind of thing, but it is more challenging and harder to model those that's a better thing for sculpting than it is for hard surface modeling. And also, it it does take a little bit. We need to gauge the interest in those kind of ships. It's hard when science fiction can be as broad as it is. I have a particular style, and either you like it or you don't like it. When it comes to alien ships, the same thing is true. So I'd want to just make sure that there's enough of an interest. Railgun Empire. All right, guys. Have a good one, and we will see you soon.